last few minutes, the Prime Minister has said further economic sanctions will be imposed against President Putin, saying he must fail. We're joined by the Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey. Good morning, Mr Heappey. There has been criticism that economic sanctions take too long to hit President Putin. But we have seen already the effect on the ruble, which is tanking this morning. What further measures are you going to take to hit Russia?
Well, I'll let the Prime Minister set that out in due course. But actually, I think what we're seeing on TV screens from Moscow this morning as banks have opened is exactly the consequence of the severe sanctions that have already been put in place. And that is the key message that I think we need to communicate to so many of our friends in Russia, that this is not a quarrel with the Russian people. These sanctions are being imposed on President Putin and the kleptocrats that surround him because they have made an appalling decision in violating international law. Now, the fact is the people that are suffering as a consequence of that decision is the Russian people that are queuing nervously outside their banks this morning. So the sanctions do have teeth, and hopefully it will lead the Russian people to question whether they want President Putin as their leader anymore.
We have offered Ukrainians with immediate family members the right to come here to the UK. You'll know that over the weekend, Kevin Foster, who's a junior immigration minister, tweeted that Ukrainians could apply for a seasonal workers visa, implying they'd be welcome here if they were prepared to pick fruit. It's led to an absolutely excoriating cartoon in the Times this morning. We need to do more and step up to help those fleeing from the violence, don't we?
Yeah, and I think we are. In fairness to Kevin, who I worked really closely with in August as we were working every last second of the day to get people out of Afghanistan, Kevin really is one of the good guys, and he cares deeply about getting people into this country in the right way. But, you're right. There needs to be a route to the UK that is more than just the normal economic migration route. There needs to be a way to this country for refugees. Actually, the size of the Ukrainian diaspora in the UK means that the offer that people can come here if they already have family here is already a very generous offer in terms of the number of people that would make eligible. But my suspicion is that this is a very evolving area of public policy, and the Prime Minister, I'm sure, later on today, when the House of Commons is sitting, will be making further announcements.
So can I just establish, because it was pointed out that the offer currently was extended to those fleeing Ukraine who have immediate family members in the UK. You haven't used the word immediate, so can I establish that anybody with family links to those living in the UK is welcome, and that may be extended. The EU has said that all member countries will take in refugees for up to 3 years without asking them to first apply for asylum. Will we match that offer?
No, first of all, my sincere apologies. You rightly picked me up. The policy is still immediate family, but that is still a significant offer given the size of the Ukrainian diaspora. But as I say, I think that this is an evolving area of policy. I think the government has a very clear sense of what it needs to be doing. It's doing a lot already. It's led the world in quite a lot of the sanctions. It's led the world it's led at least in Europe, on generating lethal and humanitarian aid. And the Prime Minister said when he was at RAF Brighton Alton on Saturday night that this country has a fine tradition of taking in refugees and that we will do so. So I think by this afternoon, by the time the House of Commons is sitting, there'll be a lot more clarity around the policy. But I know the Prime Minister is trying to do the right thing.
James Heappey, it begs the question. We have known for quite some time that this conflict could have happened. We prepared for it in every other way. Whether it's through sanctions we might be able to take or weapons we might be able to supply to Ukraine. Why aren't we prepared for this? There are people right now, we see the pictures, we've been seeing them this morning. There are people desperate to flee their countries. And we have a responsibility to show compassion at this point. Why is it taking days to make a very simple decision? Let's just allow them to come here.
Well, hang about. I think we are prepared on all fronts. Troops were sent to Poland some weeks ago in anticipation of the humanitarian challenge that would be faced. But bear in mind that Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania are safe, stable European countries. That's not to say that all of the refugees that leave Ukraine should stay in those countries. They undoubtedly won't. And everybody in Europe, I expect many other countries around the world, will make offers for how those people can relocate. But your question about immediate humanitarian relief, that was foreseen. The teams were put in place to make sure that we were ready to help the Poles with the humanitarian challenges that they will face. That work's already underway. Actually, I don't think that it is a problem that people are now considering where people go thereafter. But people are safe, secure, and will be fed once they've crossed the border, because that was planned for, and the UK is already contributing to the effort.
You are a former British Army officer. You served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Would you, like the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, say that if anybody wants to go over and fight on the Ukrainians' behalf from the UK, is welcome to do so?
I probably wouldn't. And I think that the travel advice is that UK nationals should not travel to Ukraine. But if people are filled with a desire to stand up for freedom, like generations of young people before them, they would be very, very welcome at their nearest Army, Navy, Air Force recruiting office, whether they want to serve full-time or part-time as a reservist in the UK Armed Forces. If they want to join, we'd be delighted to have them.
And why would you not back the Foreign Secretary in her message?
Well, because the travel advice is that UK nationals shouldn't travel to Ukraine, and B, because I just think people have to have their eyes wide open to what war is, and it is not somewhere that you just jump on a plane, grab a rifle, and get going. The people that you see doing that in Kyiv are doing it because they are facing an existential threat out of absolute desperation. I'm not sure that. I think I understand why the Foreign Secretary said what she said, but as Ben Wallace has been saying this morning when he's been answering these questions, I think that, on reflection, what people should be doing is listening to the travel advice.
Mr. Heappey, just on President Putin, he has, in the last 24 hours, threatened nuclear attacks. I mean, that is just horrendous. Looking at his reign, he's been there for 15 to 20 years as Prime Minister or President. What responsibility do we have here in the UK? I mean, people have called London the laundromat. They've called it Londonigrad, in the sense that we have emboldened a dictator. We have seen him operate. We've seen what he did in Syria. We've seen what he did right here in Salisbury. And we have turned a blind eye continually. What part have we played in the situation that we see today?
Well, I'm not sure that I share that analysis. And if you may, I'd like to come back to the nuclear point, because I think it's really important for many of your viewers to sort of have some reassurance on that front. But to answer your question first, when after Salisbury, the UK led the world in an almost universal ejection of Russian intelligence officers from dozens, if not 100 countries around the world. That was an extraordinary show of international solidarity led by the UK that really hurt Russia. The UK has for a long time been somewhere that Russians have sought to invest and live. I'm not sure that was necessarily the wrong thing, because our competition with President Putin was playing out in different ways. And actually, a large number of the people that have come to the UK from Russia and brought their wealth here have come here because they absolutely detest President Putin and want to get away from him. So we've got to be really careful not to make this a Russophobic thing where all Russians in the UK, all Russian money in the UK is automatically bad. That's not the case.
But some of it is, though, isn't it?
I was going to agree. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely, there is money here that shouldn't be. And that is why you are seeing very swift moves by the government to get to grips with that, so that the oligarchs that very much are part of Putin's elite cannot enjoy the trappings of their wealth here in London. Do you have time for me to come to a nuclear point?
Yeah,
I'd like to.
Of course, I think we would definitely agree we have time to address the nuclear point, because people feel ill thinking about that this morning.
No, me too. I mean, of all the conversations you think you're going to be having in 2022, this is not one of them. But I think people need to be reassured on two fronts. Firstly, I think that this is President Putin distracting, frankly, from the fact that the ground operations in Ukraine are not going as he wants, and he's messaging to the Russian public that this is somehow about an existential threat to Russia from NATO, which is simply not true. So I think there's an element of distraction. But the other thing to reassure people is that what President Putin appears to have instructed his defense ministry to do is to bring his nuclear forces to a state of readiness that the West is already at. You know, we never talk about them, but some of the most incredible people in the UK armed forces are the submariners that spend day after day, month after month, year after year, hidden beneath our oceans with the UK's nuclear weapons, offering the ultimate deterrent against attack of the UK and therefore the ultimate guarantee of our sovereignty. So the UK, France, United States, the kind of Western NATO powers, our submarines are already at sea, hidden from the world, silently going about their business. So I don't think Putin means this. I think it's a distraction. But the UK and the West are already ready. We are every day, every night, because the Royal Navy and the submariners within are incredible people.
Okay.
James Heappey, Armed Services Minister, thank you very much for joining us this morning.